Hi, this is Arash and welcome to the Epoxy channel. In this channel, we're going to talk about the epoxy resins from the theoretical aspects to the most practical ones. So if this is the first video you're watching, or if you're interested in epoxy resins, please like and subscribe to our channel for more videos. Today, I am going to present hydroxyl value HV of epoxy resins. So, hydroxyl value of epoxy resins. Let us start defining the hydroxyl value or hydroxyl number, OH number of a resin. The hydroxyl number is a measure of the concentration of the hydroxyl group or OH group on the polyol or a molecule. Hydroxyl group may be presented as polyhydric alcohols, partial esters, polyesters in groups, or hydroxylated fatty acids. Technically, when we have both epoxy and hydroxyl group available in a molecule or in a compound, both will be counted when we are using, for example, the method for hydroxyl value calculation. So it must be considered. We will discuss the method in the next slide more. So let's see what is hydroxyl value and how it is measured for epoxy resin and other types of resin. We said that this hydroxyl value is a measure of the presence of OH groups or free OH groups. So we have a R which is connected to an OH group or an alcohol. Then we react it in a way with acetic anhydride, and the resultant would be this kind of acetic acid. This acetic acid is titrated by potassium hydroxide, and the value points to the number of available OH. This is for normal case. But for epoxy case, the thing is a little bit different, because this acetic acid, which is supposed to be titrated and reported, can react with these epoxy rings, and it is actually consumed. So when we use this method for epoxy resins, we have to consider that some of the acetic acid has been consumed by the epoxy rings. So we should know the number of epoxy ring ahead before starting to reporting, for example, the hydroxy value. The same thing is also valid for amine groups. When we have primary or secondary amine, they can be acetylated as well. The content of hydroxyl groups in a compound is determined by calculating the hydroxyl value Hv or hydroxyl equivalent He as described in ISO 7142. Just to recall, we said that easily by treatment with acetic anhydride and pyridine followed by titration, it can be measured. And when we do the procedure reported in 7142, we would have He value, which is hydroxy equivalent, and Hv value, which is hydroxyl value, can be measured based on the He value. More about this is that the maximum 5% variation is acceptable between two measurements, and precision is dependent to the size of the hydroxyl value. There are also other methods available to measure the hydroxy value of epoxide. As you've mentioned in the former slides, we have to know the EE value beforehand, and we know that after a reaction we could be able to measure the hydroxy value number of an epoxy. But there are some other methods also available. Another way to define the OH value of epoxy resin is based on the reaction of LiAlH4 with alcohol groups. The hydrogen produced during the reaction is measured by the Zaravitynov method, which is a direct method actually. The epoxy groups are unable to react under these conditions and do not interfere with the measurement, so it could be more precise. but this method is highly complex and used rarely. The other method to measure the hydroxyl value of an epoxy resin is based on ISO 7142, which is recommended by ISO standard as well. In this method, we have to prepare a solution of pyridinium perchlorate, and we need some samples, gram of samples, and we should have an estimation of the epoxy equivalent of the resin. So actually we measure the epoxy equivalent of the sample first, and after that we see based on the number available for EE, we consider the proper amount of the mass and the use of, for example, pyridine perchlorate solution, which is supposed to be used for titration. So we weigh the corresponding mass of pyridinium perchlorate, which is defined by this table. We add 25 milliliter of acetic anhydride pyridinium mixture. We warm it. We let the sample to dissolve in the solution. We use a reflux condenser. We heat it to boil, and after that we let it boil for 30 minutes. After that we add 2 milliliter of water and 10 to 15 milliliter of pyridine, and add 3 drops of phenolphthalein solution and titrate with potassium hydroxide solution. Finally, we can calculate the hydroxy equivalent by this equation, which all these numbers are known to us and can be calculated easily.
Thanks for your attention. I hope you found this video interesting. Please share your thoughts, comments, and questions, and I will come back to you soon.